as well. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to jump over to our sponsor today, and that is iTrust Capital. This is a great place for you guys to look at long-term around your crypto holdings. You can do this in an IRA, and I don't know if you guys know this, but there's still an option for you to, do something within an IRA before the tax deadline. So check it out with your tax advisor. You guys could, of course, join it by using our link down below, and you get $100 in a funding reward to get started and get going there. And this is something you can do, where you sprinkle a little bit here on your active trades, put a little IRA away. You can do that very easily in diversifying your portfolio. So check it out and let's get going. Of course, I want to have Evan and Aldo join us today. We're going to jump into a few tokens and also give you some predictions. So let's go over and get Evan in. How are you, man?
Doing fantastic, Paul. Great to be on. Exciting time, Crypto Summit. It's kind of surreal seeing what's happened the past few weeks and all the fear. So, it's exciting. Yeah. It's exciting.
Listen, we got to look at some charts today. Before we get into that, we are going to look at a lot of the altcoins that kind of are circling around the Crypto Summit in the sense of the, not the strategic reserve, because that has been clarified as Bitcoin. But before we go into the Bitcoin chart, a couple of things right here. A couple of points that were stated last night, statement that broke crypto markets tonight. Government will not acquire additional assets for the stockpile beyond those obtained through forfeiture proceedings. So this is something that was discussed. And of course, everybody's looked at this. I've got a clip to play, Evan, before we get started. Let's cut to this clip. This is Trump signing the Bitcoin reserve.
Today we're signing, this is very historic, an executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile. This is a promise that you made throughout the campaign, and today we're keeping that promise. The reserve will be capitalized with Bitcoin that the federal government already owns, so it won't cost taxpayers a dime. This is like a digital Fort Knox for digital gold. And premature sales of Bitcoin over the past years cost American taxpayers over $17 billion in lost value because we didn't have a long-term strategy.
Right.
Now we do. So.
And this is something you believe in?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And the whole community believes in it.
Very good. And they made the promise, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a good one.
All right, another executive order signed off by President Trump. He didn't seem too excited about that. Or maybe it was a long day. I don't know, because he did it last night. As soon as that happened, though, we started to see Bitcoin bleed against that very statement, is that they're going off with what's already in the reserve, not acquiring any new Bitcoin, which means no additional Bitcoin from the American government. Now, the question is whether or not this is going to get affected by other governments. But when you look at Bitcoin right now, Evan, what's your position? Do you like it on the charts?
I generally like it, yes, and I'll show you the charts right there. The thing I want to say about Trump real quick, though, is, he just released 2 meme coins that are down 90+%. I'd be a little apprehensive if I were him, too, right now. But, yeah, so ultimately, we look at the chart for Bitcoin right now, and this is our, generally, in the halving and post-halving years, you're looking for about a 30% kind of correction in the beginning of the year. We're just about to see that. It's, we're close to that. That 75 mark, we definitely could drop a little bit lower. At 74 point is the big point. A lot of people would probably like to see for a full 30% correction. But let's compare this a little bit to kind of what we saw in the last, in 2021 right here is about a 31% correction. We are a little delayed. We're delayed about a month and a half. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's okay, and it kind of would give us some steam for more of an extended cycle here. You do have a very deep anchor wave that kind of confirmed right here, very similar to what happened in July of 24. And you see we came up, then we came down for a wick down below, and then we recovered. It could be some situation like that for more consolidation, but ultimately what I would kind of, estimate here would be we're eventually should see something like this happen in the coming months and hopefully making a new all-time high. I would say some point, before the summer is kind of what I would hope for. And the other thing too that I'm kind of looking at here was actually the 5-day. You're forming kind of a trigger wave right here. Last one, very similar to that area. So, unless you think we're going into a recession, unless you think things are going to get really ugly for the stock market in general, I do think we're going to be all right. And the last thing I'll show you real quick, just the NASDAQ. We saw an 11% correction in March of 2021. This is with the 4-year cycle. Remember, Bitcoin does follow the NASDAQ to a certain extent, about 11% down. Unless you think we're going into a recession here, I think the NASDAQ's going to recover as well as Bitcoin.
Okay, so there are some things out there I think that many people are questioning right now, because obviously this was much different so far. Now, granted, the Crypto Summit, which may get aired as we are recording here right now, but it looks like we're starting to see data that they may push this to tonight. So for those of you guys stick around for the live, if they do go live, we'll be streaming it live here on the channel. One thing I wanted to do was go to another clip, Evan, because this was kind of a counterbalance of whether this was really good for crypto or not. Take a look.
Was there disappointment? If so, what was the disappointment?
The big expectation was that we would see some sort of Bitcoin purchasing plan in tandem with the announcement of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. But the language in that executive order was very specific about it just meaning that we would hold on to what was already seized in criminal operations rather than roll out any sort of taxpayer dollars into a buying scheme.
Who wants that? No one wants taxpayer dollars going into buy.
Senator Lummis put forth a bill last year where you'd buy 1 million Bitcoin over the course of 5 years. You'd hold on to that for 20 years and periodically sell it off to pay down the, multi-trillion-dollar deficit on hand.
Right, but if we're not really buying it, right, we're not going to be buying it. You agree with that?
I think that right now we have around $17 billion worth of Bitcoin, and holding on to that is enough of a signal that other countries would follow suit. And I mean, some of the language in that EO did say that if they could find budget neutral ways to add it to our balance sheet, they would investigate that. Now that, of course, stops short of a buying plan, but it signals that they're open to some way to do this if it doesn't take taxpayer dollars.
Do you know of a way they could do it without taking taxpayer dollars? No, honestly,
yeah.
I say that because it's the craziest. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my whole life.
Well, what's interesting to me is that President Trump spent a lot of time with Bitcoin miners on the campaign trail, and it goes to that larger thesis of other countries that are turning either sanctioned energy in the case of Iran or, idle resources into Bitcoin.
All right, so a couple of points there I want to make, Evan, is that they're kind of defending the whole idea of it's Bitcoin that's going in that's already been seized. We had already had it, so it wasn't a big deal. But everybody should remember that the American government sold a tremendous amount of Bitcoin, left about 17 billion on the table. So I'm looking at it this way: if Bitcoin does go up to 120, 150, or at some point in the future, as Michael Saylor would say, goes up to $1 million, the U.S. government's going to look really stupid of not buying Bitcoin and instead just setting it in there. So,
right.
And this is the thing that I've kind of argued back and forth: is are they really listening? David Sachs was on Twitter. He hit on a couple of points right here, and this was kind of interesting. He was doing some back and forth here with Alex, and this, of course, was that they were talking about the reserve. And I think a lot of people forget, and he was kind of going head to head here with David Sachs, is that he's pumping his bags. And, of course, David goes, hey, that's a big hoax. I've sold all my bags, yada, yada. But the point being is that Sachs is listening. And if he's listening, then he understands what the crypto community is wanting. Ethereum was not necessarily mentioned in the initial last Sunday. And I think a lot of people got a little bit sideways on that. When you look at ETH right now, and Evan, I got to call you out on the $5,000 ETH call you had a few weeks back. We didn't get the 5,000.
I got a new one now.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we didn't get there yet. Yeah.
Even better.
We'll get there in a couple months. Yeah, I think.
All right. Well, okay. All right. So not ETH in 5 weeks, but it was I think it was 5,000 in 5 weeks.
I don't remember the exact call. I'm trying to forget about that.
I think we got the receipts.
But, we can go back and somebody will find it on.
Let's go look at your chart, though. I want to get your chart on Ethereum.
So let's take a look here. So Ethereum right now, and I mean, the thing I'm looking at, we did fall down. We hit this kind of really big point. We're trying to form a kind of trigger wave very similar to kind of this area back in October of 23, which had a really nice rally upward. And I think that if all could go well, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, maybe I'm wrong, but if all can go well, I think we could hit kind of a bottom around 2,000 here. Maybe we wick down a little bit more below. It is possible, but I think, within the next few weeks to next month, you can kind of start a nice recovery rally. And I mean, my new kind of target for 5,000 is sadly not until midsummer now, early to midsummer now. So, I mean, it is a little bit different. We did have a little fork in the road. You know, some of these predictions take a while to play out, but that's kind of my main perspective on ETH right now. Now, the big debate here is, you know, what happens in the more short term. You know, your money flows a little tricky here on some of these, you know, lower time frames. It's not impossible to break down to 1700 or 1600, but I do think that unless you think we're going into a recession, unless you think the Fourier cycle is completely broken, we should be able to leech onto or grab onto one of these levels and get some momentum and get some buyers to really bring us up and have a nice rally into kind of the middle of summer into the end of the year, hopefully. And I still think, you know, even if you come down to 1700, I still think you could have something like this happen, and we could see into the end of the year still a $7,000 ETH, which was my big price target that I've really been looking at. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So your prediction right now, still holding on the 7K ETH by end of year. Typically in the past, we've seen the summer months be a little bit light on at least action in the market. It's been a lot of sideways action for the most part. I want to jump back to something that Matthew Siegel covered. This is we've had Matthew on before a couple times. Let me kind of zoom in on that for you, Evan, so you can see a little bit more. So possible budget neutral ways for the government to acquire Bitcoin. These were just kind of a listing, but he said nearly all of them would require congressional action. Some of them were, you know, a potential ESF, which would be a net $39 billion self-funded but not congressionally approved. Then you've got revalued gold reserves. That's a big deal because it would require congressional action. And that may happen. I mean, we may see something like that. Don't put that out when we get into investment. And then a handful of others, Bitcoin bonds, lobbying the IMF, et cetera, most of which would all require congressional oversight to be able to do that. So I guess in a way, at least we know that the US government, Bitcoin is going to stay in a reserve and is not going to flood the market. The other option is the way that this could possibly get other countries to come into and possibly buy Bitcoin, or at least set it up from a reserve, because I'm sure that, you know, when we're in comparison, we kind of hold all the cards right now because we do have so much Bitcoin. Here's Brian Armstrong. He hits on that very point. I expect many of the G20s, these are nations, to take notice and eventually follow America's leadership for a Bitcoin reserve. So I think with all of that, you know, these are still very positive. What was your position right now, Evan? Was this a win for Bitcoin, a nothing burger, or this was bad? Where would you put it?
I think it's a soft win. I think, you know, when you see Trump kind of signing that order, he's kind of thinking, you know, the backlash. You know, I had my 2 meme coins go down. I'm getting some hate on that. You know, Bitcoin's high right now. You know, it hit that 100K. So maybe he's a little bit nervous. Is this the best time to be buying Bitcoin? So how about we just keep the Bitcoin that we kind of already have? You know, I think it's more of a safe thing on there. But, you know, I think it's good. And I think you don't want kind of the narrative to be just, you know, 100%, we're going to buy it all right now and, you know, go crazy until the cows come home. We want a little bit of cautious optimism, which I think is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the questions coming through. We do have a poll, though, I want to go to real quick. Let's take a look at the poll. And it's in reference to this. What happens at the Crypto Summit, an altcoin strategic reserve, no crypto taxes, or nothing happens? 38% is the leading. And that's the one that I think people are kind of leaning in on, other than no crypto taxes, which is something that people were asking. Now, Kobeisi reported on that just here today, and that is that no capital gains tax exemptions are expected to be discussed, meaning no tax exemptions are going to be on the table tonight, or at least according to the White House. So they obviously are going to be covering the agenda there. And we're also starting to get a lot of variation on the people that are attending the event. And that in itself is going to be, I think, something that will be intriguing, because it will say a lot to the market of who is present in the room, who's not present in the room, etc. A couple other things. It's been 45 minutes. This was in reference to Trump's remarks. And that's when we saw the S&P absolutely crater. Is there anything in the S&P 500 right now, when you look at crypto related, whether it's MicroStrategy, Coinbase, Robinhood, even NVIDIA to a certain extent, is there anything that you're saying, hey, most of those have corrected down pretty significantly? Robinhood, MicroStrategy, all down, even Coinbase, but Robinhood and MicroStrategy down over 30, I think almost 40% over the last few months. Is there anything you would consider in the S&P that is crypto related right now?
I think I think ETH will probably outperform MicroStrategy in the coming months, hopefully, if you really believe in ETH. But MicroStrategy, I think, is a good buy. I think all of the above you mentioned are pretty good buys. Unless you think we're going into a recession here, generally this is what happens around the beginning, actually March of the last kind of post-halving year, last post-election year as well, March of 21. You saw a lot of things come down, such as the NASDAQ, S&P 500 as well. So I wouldn't be nervous yet. I think these are great buys. Even Tesla's down at least 40% right now, which I think is probably a great buy. So unless you think things are going to get really ugly, we're talking recession, we're talking potential, worse things going on with Russia, Ukraine, then it's probably going to be able to recover. And I think with the amount of fear I'm seeing, in all likelihood, we should recover. I could be wrong, but I think we will recover here.
Evan, the Dixie is coming off its top, which was right back here in early January, and we've seen a pretty big, significant drop in that. In the past, this has been very good for risk assets. Do you feel like this is going to hold, including gold? Is this going to hold right now? And what happens if we do get into these all-time lows? If you look at this over time, this is on the daily, but I mean, even back in, what was that, September, we had hit a low. That was prior to the election. That seemed to be the low that we were bouncing off all the way through, previous of when Biden was in office, where we were seeing, all-time highs into that. But really, if you go all the way back here into February of 2022, was the last time we really saw some big cuts. What is your position right now on where the Dixie plays into this, as opposed to the entire risk asset market?
I think when I look at my Dixie chart right here, I think it's in trouble. I mean, you have the trigger waves to the downside. You're seeing another one right here. Came down, came down, came down. We're probably seeing a little bit of a bounce, like you mentioned. So maybe a little bit of a recovery. And if this comes up a little bit more, that could be the case for a little bit more down in Bitcoin, maybe 72K, maybe 73K. But I think generally, with more rate cuts coming, potential quantitative tightening ending, I think this generally will be headed more downward. I mean, you came up all the way in the 22, came down a lot. I think you should at least into the end of the year get back to these numbers that we were in 2023, something like this into middle or end of the year. And I think that should be well over enough to bring Bitcoin back up to new all-time highs, probably 120, maybe even 150K. So I think this is all we need, is to get the Dixie back down to this level, which shouldn't be too hard to trigger a nice altcoin season and trigger a new all-time high for Bitcoin. So that's what I'm thinking.
All right. Okay, so speaking of altcoins, because this is a situation I think, though, a lot of fund managers are trying to figure out, is where do they go? We were just on a call last night with several fund managers that are starting to dip their toe into crypto, specifically because of this summit. And really because of Trump signing the executive order that says, hey, Bitcoin's a strategic reserve now. We had a planned, call on this, and it was intriguing to me to see how much they were doing in terms of dumping stocks. And if you look at this bar chart, hedge funds have dumped stocks over the past 2 weeks, fastest pace in history. So with that happening, could we see people working more into gold, more into Bitcoin, and possibly looking at some other assets, maybe in the top 10 of crypto as far as altcoins? What are your thoughts?
All of the above, yeah. I think there's that money has to go somewhere. And if it's not the US dollar, it's probably going to be Bitcoin. It's probably going to be gold. I think all of those things will do pretty well as well. And I mean, obviously, we know hedge funds don't always get it right. So them having a big sell-off could be sort of a bottom signal as well. So, I mean, it doesn't really scare me too much.
Okay. Let's go into some of the altcoins that I want to talk about today. Obviously, let's take a look at XRP, because XRP is another one that will be impacted here, along with Bitcoin and Ethereum, for what we're seeing around these strategic reserves. What does your XRP chart show us?
So when we look at XRP right here, the first thing I look at here, I like on the 4-day trigger wave, kind of similar to some of the trigger waves forming on Bitcoin, Ethereum. Your money flow is not the best, coming down a little bit, but I think especially in a post-halving year, this could be a nice catalyst upward. Now, obviously, you're going to get diminished returns from this. I don't think it's going to go up 400% again. That would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. But, maybe doing half of that or a quarter of that giving us a rally up to $4, and potentially it's going to take longer, probably, mid-year at the earliest, end of year. Those are the big kind of
What's the
places
numbers,
that I'm
Chris?
looking at for a jump up a little bit higher here on XRP, potentially up to, that 4.5, $4.50 area. You could see more consolidation. I mean, this month could be a little bit more sideways. I think it's going to be a gradual increase, but I think XRP is generally going to do pretty well into the end of the year. I think at least we're going to break up from this pocket right here, which that gives us, 5.7. So a little over a double into the end of the year, I think is a great goal for this. So yeah, could take time though. Be patient with it.
All right, so I got the team working on some numbers in the background because we're looking at 3 or 4 different projects right now. One that I'm looking at is SWE. And this is one that has made big announcements. Their big claim was their partnership with World Liberty Fi. Canary Capital also has registered for a SWE ETF. Okay, so there's a lot of things happening with SWE. Just full disclosure, SWE is a channel partner. My question, though, is on SWE, when you look at this strategy, they're an American crypto, much like many of these others that have started to kind of, circle around not only the summit, but just in general around DC, which I think we're going to see more and more of those. Do you like this long term? It has been one that has overperformed. Do you feel like it will slow down going forward, or do you feel like this is just set up for maybe a big win?
Well, I mean, after what we saw it do, it's obviously going to slow down a little bit at least. But I do think that after this drop off, there's a good, after this 50%, 56% correction, there's a good shot you could have another rally, some diminished return version of this, maybe, half of that, repeating that, maybe up to somewhere between $6-7 into the summer, into the next few months, and then kind of a boring summer, a low right there, and continuing forward, maybe up to even $10. So, I mean, what could this do? Maybe a 3 to 4x into the end of the year. Nothing insane for crypto, but I still think there's a here at doing some cool things. And, nice wave kind of forming right here on the 5-day. We could consolidate a little bit more in the next month or so. But I think into April and onward, you should generally be upward and then having a nice, trajectory upward into the end of the year. So it generally still looks strong in the charts. I wouldn't put all your eggs in one, wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket, but I think there's a good shot of recovery. Whether this is the bottom here at 230 or whether we go down to $2, 195. I wouldn't get too nervous unless we lose $1.90 here. So I think there's a lot of potential for recovery.
All right, so 190 kind of the point to watch. And just for you guys that have tuned in, the Crypto Summit has been, they're talking about dropping it here this afternoon, then they're talking about an 8 o'clock time frame. I anticipate that Trump's probably going to try to do something. They've been moving this date around or this time around all day. So it's not live yet. If it is, and they do decide to go live on it, we're queued up, ready to be able to broadcast that to you guys. So stick around for that. On that, I want to talk about Hedera. Hedera is another one that was not necessarily mentioned in the beginning, but at the same time, another company that is US based. We've seen a lot of people talking about HBAR and their new board member, which is Brian Brooks. This guy's been around the industry for quite some time, and we've seen him at a lot of the big exchanges. Now he's saying that this particular researcher says that, hey, we think Brian's going to be in DC. Here's something that I think is happening, is that I think there's a lot of chains out there that are saying, we're going to go to the summit. They may not necessarily be in the room, but they're going to be in DC to probably meet with other lawmakers, et cetera. So they aren't necessarily saying something that's not true, but I think it's insinuated. But when you look at Hedera right now, is this a token that you would go with as an investment?
I think so. And, diversified with a lot of others. You're hitting a big point right here. It got, this is one where it's like, it just went crazy all of a sudden. You basically almost got up to all-time highs right here, just a huge set 8x, 800% out of nowhere. Can you repeat this and get up to $1 into the end of the year? I think there's a decent shot. And, this nice little trigger wave on the 5-day, we'll see what happens with this. It could take some time to play out, but I think that should at least bring you back up to these all-time highs, maybe floating around that new all-time high. And then if you could break above there, then your next target is going to be at our next point, which is going to be around 94 cents, which could be, if you think this could make a new all-time high, that's the big area to look at. So a trajectory into maybe the summer, maybe it's hard to say. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer, but I would say hopefully by midsummer you can get there, early summer you could get there, then maybe a little bit of correction, and then into the end of the year, hopefully my big goal on this could be around $1.50. So what is that, 4 or 5, 6x from here?
Yeah.
Around a 6x could be the highest I could see it going. So, I think there's a good shot. I think there's a good shot of, we saw the consolidation pullback, maybe repeating a jump up, a little more pullback in summer, then one more jump up. I think there's a lot of potential here. So, yeah.
All right, you heard it, H-bar, what is it, H-bar-arians or H-bar barbarians? I always mess that up. But the point is that Hedera has been a good one. Listen, we've seen a lot. We did a Hedera video the other day, and just the amount of innovation and also partnerships that they've been able to connect to, they're definitely one that has been able to perform. And they have been performing. The token has been performing here recently. So it's a good one for, if you guys are brand new in crypto, this might be a good one for you to set on. And it's somewhat neutral. It doesn't have these massive run-ups and run-downs. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure and do that right now, guys. Subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't followed Evan's show, you just search Evan Aldo over on YouTube.
Yep.
I'll bring his channel up here in a minute. But go over there. He does a couple of live streams. Are you still live streaming while you're traveling?
Yes, I am. Not every day, but I am, yes.
I'm trying to get the live streams in. So he does some good live streams on trading if you want to learn a little bit more about how to enter and exit trades. He does a lot there. I want to jump over to Chainlink, and I've got a clip for you. This is Sergey talking about what he's expecting. Now, one thing about this particular CEO from Chainlink is that he's going to be in the room. And here's what he had to say. Take a look.
Holistically, the point of the summit, I think, is to figure out how does the U.S. acquire a leadership position globally in this new trend. The U.S. had a leadership position at the beginning of the internet. It was many years ahead of other economies, other parts of the world. And being ahead in the internet gave the U.S. A big advantage because many of the applications, technologies, companies that grew out of the internet then started to define the U.S. economy and the global economy, because indeed the internet was a better way of doing things than doing them on paper.
Understood.
The blockchain industry and chains and cryptocurrencies are a similar sized evolution. And so the U.S. wants to once again be the leader in that evolution.
All right, so that is Sergey coming in from Chainlink. If you look at the charts, and you have to remember, Chainlink has done some recent partnerships with Swift, which is a arch enemy of Ripple when you look at money transmitting and what that means for moving big amounts through the banking systems worldwide. It's interesting that you've got Ripple and Chainlink in the same room. So I'm just saying that's something to keep an eye on right there. Let's talk about the chart though. When you look at Chainlink right now, it's been up, it's been down. This has been a lot more volatile than I expected. What do you like or don't like about Chainlink?
So the first thing when I see Chainlink, just very basic traditional TA, would show us one of my favorite patterns, continuation bullish pattern, or bullish pattern in general, reverse head and shoulders right here. That's the big place, $13, that you kind of want to keep between 13 and 12, I would say. So if we can keep that, and I think we might here, you have this kind of wave forming right here, kind of similar to back, one of these areas, it's a potential trigger to that anchor wave right there. That could bring us on a nice kind of ride here. And if you could repeat something of this nature, that could be toying with new all-time highs before July, end of June. You could have a nice rally here, catching a lot of people off guard. I think it is possible. That same wave kind of forming on that weekly, that one was a dud. You did come down farther. It is possible that it could be a dud and you come down to $8. I kind of don't think so. I think there's possibility to continue forward. And I think there's a lot of potential with Chainlink. So if you can hit off of this area, our first big stop is going to be back to $28, hopefully in a few months by the end of May. And then hopefully end of June, you could be a little bit higher, toying with new all-time highs, probably best case scenario. Maybe those old all-time highs give us a little bit of, problem there into the summer. and then you have that summer lull that we typically see, and then hopefully, just hopefully, you can get up to $80 by the end of the year. That's the big point. So I think there's a lot of potential here. I like what I'm seeing. I think in a few weeks we're really going to know. Are we going to hold that $13, $14, or are we going to go lower? I think March is pretty crucial. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks.
All right, so we're good for Chainlink, because I think we have a lot of Chainlink members in the audience, and they're always really kind of pumping that token. We are going to also, I'm going to drop some news here on XRP a little bit later, so make sure to stick around for that. We're going to be doing something special I think you guys will want to be aware of. Let's go over to Avalanche now. And when you think about Avalanche, this has been this is Emin Gonsincere, so he is the CEO of AVAX. And when you look at Avalabs, when you look at Avalanche right now, not a performer. This one has been very disappointing. We've got a lot of traders that are just not in love with Avalanche anymore. Are you still in love with Avalanche, though?
Well, I don't think I'm in love with any altcoin. It's all about diversification, because if you fall in love with anything in life, you're always going to be disappointed. That's how it works. But, anyway, it's true right there. I think there's a lot of potential of jumping up, repeating some situation like here, or even back like there. That was what I was looking at back from October of 23. If we can follow this general trajectory right here, that's toying with hopefully a new all-time high by later summer, and then maybe you can jump up to these big points that are like $230, which would be over a 10x. I mean, that would be over a 10x right there, which would be really good. And most important thing that we want to look at right now, we want to make a higher low. That's really what we want to do. We want to make a higher low from what we saw in August. If you're just going down and losing this area, going down to say, back down to like $14, not the best look. So it would get a little bit worrisome. The odds of making a new all-time high this year would go down. But I like the wave right here, very similar to September of 23. In a post-halving year, I wouldn't doubt this. I think something definitely could be brewing, and I think you may see a lot of green months ahead this year. So yeah.
Okay. A lot of green months. So you're still very bullish on the market in general. Is there anything that you're not bullish on? When you look at altcoins, would you step away from gaming? Would you step away from AI or DePIN? Any segment that you would stay away from right now based on what you're looking at?
I would say just don't get caught up in the nonsense, all the meme coins. We're just hoping that kind of ends, so more of that money can go into like real projects. Don't get caught up in, that type of stuff. I think AI's got a lot of potential. I think gaming's fine. I mean, it's hard to say, there's going to be one sector that's probably not going to do as well as the rest. It's hard to say which one. I would kind of guess that maybe the gaming stuff, maybe the NFTs, ordinal stuff will make a nice rebound. Maybe some of that money that went into the memes will go towards that. And maybe AI would be a little bit of a disappointment because there's already a lot of money into that. There's a lot of hype behind that. But I could be completely wrong. It's hard to say. But I would just say be careful with the memes, obviously.
All right, just a quick update on a tweet from Eleanor here. She's talking about Eleanor Terra. If you guys don't follow her over on Fox, she's doing a great job. She's their crypto reporter. This is what she's been able to confirm so far. We've got the majority whip there. Most of them, A16Z still there. Mara's going to be there. BitGo, Mike Belshe's been on our show. You got Garlinghouse coming in. Quite a few. I'm surprised that we don't have more. Of course, there's Vlad from Robinhood, Brian Armstrong. Wisdom Tree also just confirmed that they would be there. Chainlink, of course. World Liberty-Fi, which I expected. And Bitcoin Magazine. Interesting. Still a roster that has been shuffled around. I'm wondering if there's going to be like maybe a warm-up section before they go into the full summit, or if this is going to kind of be one of those cabinet meetings going into it. I don't know. One of them that is missing there, of course, is ADA, Cardano, and of course we saw that yesterday. Also Solana not represented here. When you look at Solana right now, and in the charts itself, with everything that's been happening with Solana, which has had a good run down and then also a great run up, is this one you still like long term?
Yeah, I mean, Solana, I mean, we know it's probably not going to do, higher market cap. It's probably not going to do as well as something like an AVAX. There's just not the volatility there. But Solana down almost 60%, I think is generally a good buy. When you look at this weekly, you're forming, similar trigger wave to what we saw back here, September of 24. I guess it could be a dud like this when you came down a little bit lower and then it kind of played out. You could even go back a little bit more if you want to be really bullish and look at what happened here in September of 23. A lot of the coins do look like that as well. So maybe a diminished return version of this. I mean, this would be a crazy high number. That would be the highest I could see it potentially going into the end of the year. It would probably be around, 600 to 800 would be that kind of lane right there. If we want to be a little bit more conservative, let's say, mapping this out like this trajectory, I think would be a nice safe bet into June, July, hopefully making a new all-time high here, and then continuing forward into September, hopefully 400, and then big place end of year, that would be 655. So, I mean, from where we are right now, where are we, 150 about, 300% still could be on the cards. I would be a little bit more conservative and probably try to take chips off the table around 400 just because Solana is still such a big market cap. I mean, there's a lot of other coins that probably will outperform it, but I wouldn't get too bearish. And I mean, if we do go down lower here, I mean, the big place is going to be at 120, then huge area at 100. I really don't think you would go below 100. That's my
and I think, but 655 year-end prediction there. That's still a very strong position in most of, because I mean, obviously trading around 150 right now. So for those who have maybe not purchased in, let's talk about that for a second, Evan. If you were going to put a bag together right now, brand new crypto investor, because we have some watching. If you're going to put a bag together, how would you construct it? What would you do? Give me the layout and kind of the balance of the portfolio.
So I would probably put even numbers in a lot of, different stuff. If it's all altcoins, I would put some Solana, AVAX, Chainlink, definitely. And then maybe, a few others. I mean, if we're considering ETH to be an altcoin in this scenario, definitely some ETH I think is a good place off the top of my head. I mean,
what would be your diversification? What would be your diversification of Bitcoin in that portfolio?
Oh, Bitcoin in that portfolio.
Yeah,
well,
if you put Bitcoin in that.
I mean,
yeah.
In a post-halving year, you could be a little lighter, maybe just 50% Bitcoin in a post-halving year, maybe just 50%. Or if you want to be real degenerate, maybe no Bitcoin for some people that are really but that's risky compared to what we've seen. So it really depends. I mean, my Bitcoin holdings are kind of low right now, but we'll see if that turns. So far, that hasn't been the best idea. So we'll see if that turns out well. But I mean, I mean, in a post-halving year, 50-60% Bitcoin, I'd say.
Okay, would you enter into Bitcoin right now as it's trading today?
Yes, I think ultimately, you're not gonna, you're probably not gonna get a 3x. We're probably not gonna go up to 200K, but can you get up to 120 or 150? Can you get a nice return that'll probably outperform the S&P 500 and NASDAQ into the end of the year? Absolutely. But if I wanted to, at least double or triple my money, I probably wouldn't bother with Bitcoin. I'd probably bother with Ethereum or others, or I'd have half Bitcoin and half altcoins.
And I think to your point is that there's a lot of investors out there that have gone to cash positions, gold positions, trying to walk away from tech stocks, and they're trying to figure out what is the alternative. So if Bitcoin can give us the kind of yields we're talking about by end of year, this could be the safe haven that we do get a chance. Now that we see a strategic reserve here by the US, we also see the potential. My anticipation is we're probably going to see a major G7 or G20 that's going to follow suit. When that occurs, that will be intriguing because most of those, they may have some Bitcoin that they could go back to and say, yeah, we're going to go with stuff that we've done, but they may also go in and buy Bitcoin maybe for the very first time. I know Anthony Pompliano has talked about that several times, that he thinks it's going to go. For sure. A couple other things I want to hit on, which are a little bit, NASDAQ now offering 24-hour trading on its stock exchange. So this is going to go into effect here in Q2. Do you think this is going to make a big difference because right now when I'm trading on the weekends, I'm almost always trading crypto. Do you think it will pull away from the crypto markets now that we get a 365 option for being able to trade on the stock exchange?
That's a good question. I mean, we all knew that this was inevitable, 24-hour trade in the Nasdaq. I think it may a little bit, but there's still more restrictions on generally Nasdaq trading that a lot of people into crypto don't want to take on. I feel like crypto is still a lot of that fringe audience that doesn't want to just switch over to the Nasdaq immediately. So I don't think it's going to take too much away from crypto overall. I don't think it's going to have too significant of a difference.
All right. So one thing in going back and looking at the your portfolio, because I was, as you were saying, I was kind of tinging together here some portfolio analysis. One thing you missed was Ripple. You didn't put XRP in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'd rather
probably buy
Solana. I'd rather buy Solana. I'd rather buy Solana right now.
Okay, so you're saying Solana over XRP and Solana over, or AVAX over XRP. Is that what you're saying? I want to make sure I got this right.
Potential in both of those. I think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Diversification, though, it's all about diversification. I mean, I don't have a problem with XRP. I just think there's other coins that'll do better, like Chainlink, like AVAX, like Solana, like SWI. I forgot to mention SWI. That's a good one to have in the portfolio too.
SWI is there. Yeah, I know everybody's asking about my portfolio, but I can tell you most of the tokens we talk about, obviously, we look at all of these, and I hold most of them, including some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it is something that I think diversification, to your point, is very critical right now, which most people do not put enough weight in right now, because I think a lot of people go so far into single investments. Those are the ones that are riskiest to me. Whether you're a Cardano holder, or an HBAR holder, an XRP holder, you should always diversify, and even diversify outside the asset class, which is another thing that, I know you don't do enough of, Evan, that getting assets outside the class itself, which is something that you need to get exposure to. Would you buy gold today?
I wouldn't buy. I think you would do better with the Nasdaq. I mean, the thing with gold is like, if buying gold today would be like kind of asking me, are we going to go into a recession or not? If I knew we were going to go into a recession, which I don't think we will, I would say to buy gold. I think the Nasdaq down 11% is a much better value than gold, at least from what I'm looking at. I think there's things that will outperform it. So, I mean, I'm not a big gold guy. I'd rather put that money into Bitcoin or the Nasdaq.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So definitely there. I know we've got a poll coming in. I'm looking at the gold chart though, Evan. Man, this is crazy gold chart right now. Even though it started to move back up, we may see a $3,000 gold before long. We're going to be talking to Andy Schechner, I know, next week. A big lineup next week of a lot of interviews. We're going to be talking XRP ETFs. We've got Andy Schechner talking gold, possible altcoin scenarios that could play out, a handful of investments going in that direction. So lots going on there. By the way, let's go to the poll real quick before we cut here. Let's take a look at the poll. All right, what's the best crypto summit play? Right now, everybody's saying buy USA coins or hold and do nothing. There you go. USA coins or hold and do nothing, which I think most people watching our show would say that we have a lot. Lean in on your camera there, Evan. We're losing your focus.
Thank you.
There you go. You've got one of those cameras that's constantly moving in and out. Anyway, so for those of you, don't forget, by the way, we've got news on the Crypto Summit. It looks like they're going to air it tonight at 8 p.m. So they've moved it, and the likelihood is that. One thing that I wanted to announce to you guys before, actually, let me show you Evan's. Go over and follow him over on YouTube. You can find him right there. And Evan Aldo right there is the guy. And don't forget, subscribe to his channel. You're at 17K. Man, you've been flying. What's going on here? Are you giving away stuff?
No. Hey, just just hanging in there.
I like
doing what I've always been doing. So we'll get up to 20K pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to announce for many of you guys that may not know, I'm going to be attending the XRP Las Vegas event. This is going on during the Bitcoin event out there. They're not a partner of the channel or anything. We're just going out there to cover a lot of the XRP news along with Bitcoin that will be in Las Vegas. So end of May. We may end up hanging out at a few pop-ups that are happening. So if you guys are in Vegas during that week, which is going to be a big week. And Evan, are you joining me there? Are you going to be there for that?
Yeah, I'll be in Vegas. Yeah, I think the XRP is right at. Yeah, I'll definitely.
It's like,
I'll be
it's like right on the butt end. Well, then good. We'll get some. We'll get in because we're going to have a media booth there, and we'll be doing a lot of podcasts from there and going live with a lot of interviews for sure. All right, guys. If you of course, have not subscribed to the channel by now, that's the last thing that you can do is subscribe and of course hit like on this video if you're catching this maybe after the live stream. And Evan, thanks for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You bet. Listen, guys, last thing, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in. It's our own private member group. We also leave a link down below that goes to our Telegram group that is a Diamond Circle Telegram group, and it's the one that I am involved in. I'm in there every day. It's the only one we use for that specifically, so you guys can, of course, just catch it down below and follow me out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.